You know, with this cold weather, it's going to come to an end eventually. Yeah, it's got me thinking about cold stories, and I told the story about Wayne Frost and the candle and the snow cave. I'm going to tell some stories of my own. Uh, I, I I'm not sure if anyone would be interested or not, but they came to mind, and I thought maybe I'd take the opportunity. I'm going to call these stories the Lake House because there's a building in New Hampshire. It's been sold. It's out of the family now, uh, but it was built by it was a summer place on Lake Sunapee in New Hampshire, built by my first father-in-law, whom I only met one time because he died when Joyce was just in 10th grade, and I wasn't dating her by that time. Well, I met him one time when I took Joyce on my first date. He was an architect, and I really liked his work. He had done his house in Concord, uh, and it was beautiful, better than Frank Lloyd Wright, I thought. Not as big, not as famous, not as weighty, but really beautiful. And he'd done something similar up on Lake Sunapee, and they called it the Lake House. The Campbell family, three girls, uh, him, his wife, Flo, and the three girls. And anyway, what it has to do with what I'm telling is that after Joyce and I married and had been in the Peace Corps for 3 years, when we came home, that's where we went to stay. I'll come to that, but let me first start by saying that when I was dating Joyce I think I was a sophomore at Harvard at this time. Uh, I'd already decided I didn't care for Harvard. That's putting it mildly. But she went to a school very near the lake house, very near Lake Sunapee, New London, Colby Junior College in New London, New Hampshire, and it was about it was about a 45-minute drive, I think, maybe, yeah, might have been, from Concord, where my parents lived. And on the weekends, while I was at Harvard, I would uh, I was working 40 hours a week as a night watchman for a lot of the time that I was at Harvard, probably for about 2 years. Uh, I because I had to be awake all night, sort of, to do that. But I could study. I could do my studying at a desk and then get up and walk around once an hour to check on things and sit down again. I did catnap. But anyway, I was doing that during the week. And then on Friday, as soon as classes were over, Friday by noon, I think, I was on the road hitchhiking. I had a suitcase that had NH, New Hampshire, on the one side, and I think it said Harvard on the other side. Uh, I kept it for a long time, an old beat up suitcase, and that was my sign. And I'd go out and hitchhike. And I never failed to get a ride, several rides usually, up to New Hampshire and then to Concord. And that's about an 80-mile trip, I think. But I'd get there by late afternoon usually. This would be Friday. And then I'd borrow my parents' car and drive up to see Joyce. So by Friday evening, I could be up there. For Friday about nightfall, I could be up there and get to see her. And I'd pick her up. And you know, in the winter especially, the obvious place to go was to the lake house because it was only about, I'm 10 miles away, 5 miles away from there. And you know, throughout the winter, all of them were empty. Virtually all the summer places were empty. So there's no heat, there's no water, but there we could go. And another thing, this is going to sound weird, but what we do is it was almost like we were dating like the Amish, I understand, date, when they're just dating. What they would do, an Amish young couple to be maybe, is they'd get in bed together. Uh, that sounds so weird, but I remember seeing it, hearing that when I was just a kid learning about the Pilgrims or the Puritans or something, and it was saying somewhere I learned that young couples when they would date, they would get in bed together. Now I understood back then that they put a board between them in the bed. Well, Joyce and I didn't do that, but it was just to stay warm. Blankets piled all over us because it was cold, uh, and uh, uh, and so all of this to be able to have a couple hours or maybe three maximum, probably not, uh, to see Joyce. I mean, we were crazy in love then, and oh, I know what I was going to tell you. On one occasion, we fell asleep, and that was bad. It reminds me of that song, "Wake Up, Little Susie, Wake Up." What are we going to tell your mama? What are you going to tell your pa? What are we going to tell your friends when they say "ooh la la"? I should give you a link to that song. Young people probably don't know it. But the trouble is there was a curfew, and Joyce had to be back at Colby College by 11 o'clock at night. And we didn't miss it by much, but she was late. I think it might have been a half hour. It might have been a half hour she was late, and she was in trouble. I'm sure she'd remember it. Yeah, I felt bad for her. And now, when I would drive back then to my parents, I would be so tired after that, staying up the night before, hitchhiking all that trip and driving all that and back there. And man, it was many a night. It was all I could. It was like a torture to try to stay awake to get back home. But anyway, there's one cold story about the lake house, and I'll stop and tell you more about the lake house soon. Bye for now.